You know, while being able to go Bushy for game or Lilith Loop for victories is really appealing and super fun, sometimes all you gotta do is get a powerful level 7 into play as fast as possible. Let's get started. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Steven Rodriguez. I'm your true champion, and that is right. Today, we are going to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to profile for you guys my purple Tactimon Zwart defeat deck list for the BT5 format of the Digimon TCG. Yes, I know that was a lot of words right now, but trust me, this one is going to be well worth it. While it is true that Tactimon Zwart is one of the most powerful win conditions Purple has ever had, it's a very complicated one to kind of set up sometimes and can lead to some really weird crackback turns against decks like Green or even Lord Nightmon. Tactimon Zwart, on the other hand, being a 3-cost evolution, is a lot easier to get into play, and believe it or not, if you surround him with a lot of other really memory-efficient cards, you can choke your opponent and create more simplified game states that you can just take over in an instance. Also, I don't think I need to tell you guys how broken it is to ever check a Zwart defeat off of security. You guys know that's awesome. So yeah, I think Tactimon Zwart defeat is a perfectly awesome card to build a deck around, and I've decided to do it today, and believe it or not guys, I think it's one of the best decks out there right now to beat Lord Nightmon, and I will talk about how you can do that once we get to the actual deck profile. If you guys enjoyed this video or get any value from it, be sure to let me know by smashing that like button, subscribing to the channel, and clicking that bell for notifications so you know when my videos go live for you. And if you guys ever use this deck after watching this video and crush Lord Nightmons, be sure to let me know by tweeting at me at @ChampionSteven_. Link can be found down below in the description. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about my purple Tacti defeat deck list for the Digimon TCG. See, now that was way easier to say. Alright y'all, here we are at the tabletop setup, and before I get into the card by card, let me briefly talk about sort of the theory behind this deck. So the two main cards you abuse are of course Tactimon and Tactimon Zwart defeat. You use Tactimon to just be a super awesome efficient attacker that can also mess with your opponent's board while also gaining your resources, all to create some really powerful and efficient Tactimon Zwart defeat turns. The really cool thing about Tactimon Zwart defeat that we try to utilize at any point in this deck is his on-deletion effect to kill tamers. I know, right? A weird one to pick, but the idea basically is this deck has a ton of cheap evolutions and cheap Digimon, so that way you can constantly choke your opponent in the early game, and the second, and I mean the second, they go for a memory tamer to try and set up some big play against you, you evolve into Zwart defeat, you choke them again, and you say, hey, good luck making your play happen. Even if you do make it happen, now you have to deal with my Zwart defeat, which if you kill, I'll just kill one of your dudes back. And it just creates so many awkward situations and board textures for your opponent that it's crazy. Also, there's some really cool cards in this deck that utilize Zwart defeat after he's played, so where if you ever get him off security, it's so much value for you. But yeah, that's sort of the main theme of this deck. Let's go ahead and head to the card by card. Starting up, as always, we have some of the best Digi-Eggs in purple, 4 copies of Demi-Meramon and 1 copy of Xiaomon. This is just like the best lineup for purple right now. You want 5 eggs because you want the 5 filters, and Demi-Mera can just give you some even more filters so that way you can get to your combo pieces. This deck is less piece reliant than every other purple deck that exists right now, as you don't play any option cards and you only play one kind of tamer. So honestly, the filter isn't that important. There might be a version of this deck, like a few variants down the line, that only play Xiaomon as your egg, because the retaliation comes up way more than you think. So honestly, while this is like the standard for purple right now, I don't really see it being needed as your egg lineup, but it's still really good. Moving on, we have the rookie lineup, and I think you'll start to see why I think this deck is super streamlined. First things first, we have 4 copies of Digimon. Not all that surprising, we do play Black War Growlmon, and whenever you play Black War Growlmon, this card is always clutch. We also have 4 copies of Tsukaimon. This is kind of a new inclusion. Again, it combos really nicely with Black War Growlmon to enable some really nice efficient board states where you have like a blocker that can like gain you a memory when it's killed, stops Lord Nightmon from killing it most of the time. Really useful and annoying for your opponent to deal with. Just a nice overall card. We also have 4 2-drop vanillas. Please ignore the Candlemon. I could not find another Demi-Devi. And finally, rounding off the rookies, we have 2 copies of Gazimon, just a really nice generic level 3 against all the memory gain effects that exist. So yeah, we have 14 level 3s, solid number. This deck plays 4 of a lot of the really important cards, so we don't really need things like Gabumon or Labramon or Tapermon to constantly give us pluses and filter. Sometimes all we want to do for our turn is play down a Demi-Devi and choke our opponent at 1, and that's most of the time good enough for me, because once we do get like the Tactimons flying and the Black War Groundmons killing the Gyumons, we're going to gain so much memory and have so many awesome efficient plays that it won't matter what our rookies do to a certain point. All in all though, this lineup is super solid and I kind of wouldn't change it for the world. Moving on, we have our level 4s, and again, we're just going super like back to basics here. We have 4 Marimon 1-drop evolutions, 4 Devimon 1-drop blockers, and 3 Devimon retaliators. Kind of the same thing like the Xiaomon. The retaliation comes up a lot in this deck. In fact, you could sometimes like swing your Zwart defeat with retaliation into a Omnimon, and that Omnimon dies, and thanks to your on deletion effect of Zwart defeat, you can kill something else. So giving retaliation to stuff like Zwart defeat is just insane, but also in general, having it as a nice form of removal without relying on option cards is really sick. And then of course the 1-drops, like I said, we want to choke our opponent whenever possible. That also means going first. Moving on to level 5s, this is where the deck gets a little fun. We have 4 copies of probably the best purple card ever in Black War Growlmon, builds board, but also lets you multi-attack whilst clearing your board. For that same reason, we're also playing 2 copies of Were Garurumon, because if you guys did not know, not only do you want to have a clear board with Tactimon when you swing, but none of his effects are once per turn. So if you multi-attack, you get them multiple times. Super, super clutch. Having these enablers for that is really nice. And then of course, rounding off the entire level 5 lineup, we have 3 copies of Skull Marimon. This again is a very memory efficient sort of like, let's build up to level 7 as fast as possible. You know, classic turbo Omni deck. Having 2-drop evolutions, I think, is staple. And having one that you can hard play with a memory tamer in play is really, really nice. But yeah, that's it. 9 level 5, super standard. Like, look at our numbers here, guys. 14, 11, 9. Man, those are some nice, nice numbers for consistency. But let's talk about the bread and butter, our level 6s. First things first, the main man himself. 4 copies of Tactimon. This is the main boss of the deck that you want to be on as soon as possible, as often as possible. He has 1 effect, but really he has 3 effects. When attacking, activate one of the effects below. If you have no other Digimon in play, activate all the effects below instead. The 3 effects are gain 1 memory, this Digimon gets power plus 2000 DP for the turn, and delete up to 3 of your opponent's level 3 Digimon. So you can either gain a memory, which is broken, increase your DP, which is also really nice, making him 13 when he swings, really good number, and delete up to 3 of your opponent's level 3 Digimon. If you ever accomplish all 3 of those effects against like a Rookie Rush deck, you auto win. And what's really cool too is thanks to the ability to multi-attack while also clearing board, you can become 15k really easily, which is really nice against rested Lord Nightmon. So if your opponent is bad and doesn't play around Tactimon, just being able to swing into Lord Nightmon, you can clear your opponent's board really easily. Now, you're probably wondering, Steven, what is our other level 6 going to be? Well, it's probably a card you have never seen before. It's 3 copies of Zanbamon. So this is a 2-drop, but it's not a 2-drop vanilla. He is a 2-drop 10,000 DP level 6 with retaliation. I'm going to be really honest, guys. The only real reason we're playing him is he's a 2-drop evolution, so we can play Zwart like a little bit faster. But the retaliation part of his effect does come up. I mean, if you have a Skull Marimon just chilling and you already have a Tactimon, you want to be able to trigger Tactimon's effects. If your opponent has a rested dude that's bigger than Tactimon is, like a Chaosmon for example, you just evolve into this guy, swing at it, clear it, and then you start swinging with Tactimon and you're partying. So honestly, Zanbamon being like a source of removal while also being a ramp into Zwart is pretty cool. Now that being said, if you want to like attack your opponent's security more often, I'd recommend playing Boltmon instead of Zanba, but trust me guys, this comes up out of nowhere sometimes against opponents, and they are flabbergasted every time. So if you want to be funny, play Zanba. Moving away from the memes that are our level 6s to the actual boss monsters of this deck, we have 4 copies of Omnimon Zwart Defeat. The entire purpose of this deck is to play this card as soon as possible. And if you guys did not know anything about Zwart Defeat, let me tell you something about him. First off, he is a 3-cost to evolve on purple or black, level 7. Super nice, really memory efficient. He has 13,000 DP. Probably the worst part about this card is his DP, but it's big enough most of the time. And he has 3 effects. The first one is Security Effect. Play this card without paying its memory cost and without battling. So that means if this guy is checked in security, the Digimon that is attacking does not die, but you get to play this guy onto your board for free. Really nice. The second effect is when Digivolving, trash one of your opponent's Tamers. That is the main effect that we utilize in this deck to just constantly choke our opponent and get a really simplified board state where all we have is this guy. And the reason why that's really nice is if your opponent does manage to do some kind of big play, but all they have is like one Digimon, he has an on deletion effect that says delete one of your opponent's Digimon. So I don't care what your opponent is doing. If it ends with them deleting this guy, you can just stymie them out of nowhere and win the game. He is literally Kentaurismon, a source of Tamer removal and a security Digimon in one. And you can do it all for just evolving for 3 memory. Card is nuts. One thing I also want to mention is we do play one other level 6, not just Zwart Defeat. And you're probably thinking, what level 6? Is it Millenniumon because we're kind of a control deck? No. Is it Zwart because Zwart is just broken? No. It is 2 copies of X Antibody. And this is honestly my favorite part about this deck, because if you guys did not know, you do not need a red and blue Digimon to evolve into X Antibody. All you need is an Omnimon, because he has a neat little effect that says your Digimon with Omnimon in its name can Digivolve into this card from your hand for a memory cost of 3, ignoring this card's Digivolution requirement. So if you have a Zwart Defeat in play and 3 memory, you can just go boop into X Antibody. And the reason why that's cool is because he has 2 other effects. The first one is when attacking, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with DP less than or equal to this Digimon, which is pretty much every Digimon in the game right now. And he also has a second effect that says opponent's turn. When your opponent's Digimon attacks, you can trash 2 of this card's Digivolution cards to negate the attack, or should I say end the attack. That's the wording on here. So he cannot stop attacking effects, but he can just stop the damage, which is super clutch. And that's kind of like the big payoff of this deck is not only are you stymieing your opponent and like making it a really simplified board state, but if they leave your Zwart Defeat while you have like a memory tamer in play and you evolve into this guy and have like a multi-attacking Black War Gromon underneath, you're just gonna start multi-attacking with this and clearing your opponent's board, which is kind of insane. So they do kind of need to answer this, but if they do, they're gonna lose something. So you guys can see how this deck can just create a ton of awkward situations for your opponent, or just surprise them with really powerful blowout cards like this. So yeah, I love this level 6 lineup. It is like the reason the deck exists, and it's really strong, especially against Lord, Nightmon, and purple decks. And finally, rounding off the whole thing, we have 3 copies of Madashida just for the memory, but every now and then we do kind of lose Tactimons that are like insecurity, and so being able to recycle them is pretty clutch. But yeah, that's the deck, guys. No option cards, nothing super fancy, no crazy out of nowhere combos, just solid, simple, build up to your level 7 and then do stuff afterwards. Classic 1.0 vibes. And boom, there you guys go. That wraps it up for my purple Tacti Defeat deck list in the Digimon TCG. I promise if you guys just sleeve up the cards for this deck and give it a shot, you will see how easy it is to get wins against things like Lord Nightmon or other purple decks. Green decks might be a little difficult, but I'm sure you guys can find ways to beat them too. If you guys enjoyed today's video, be sure to let me know by smashing that like button, subscribing to the channel, and by clicking that bell for notifications so you know when my videos go live for you. And if there's anything in this video you want me to elaborate on, or you just want to see me use a deck like this live and in person, be sure to follow me over on Twitch. Link is down below as always. I can't wait to see you guys in there. But with that being said, I've been your true champion, Steven. Please be sure to work hard, rest easy, and live well. And I will see you all next time. Peace!